I'm Dr. Terri Simpkin and I'm an associate at Portman Partners. One of the most pressing issues facing the data centre sector today is associated not with technical matters, but with people. For many years, DCs have reported pressing shortages of qualified and capable individuals willing and able to take up roles across the data centre. Just this week, I was talking to one senior manager who said he's had a dozen vacancies go unfilled in the last month, but he laments the fact that when he does fill those, there's going to be another dozen still to fill. Growth, labour turnover and poaching are all underpinning reasons for the ongoing critical talent shortage. But why is this matter so difficult to resolve? Surely we should just be able to train more people and be done with it. Well, no. Let's start at the beginning with a clear picture of what's going on in the sector. Firstly, if we only had a skills shortage, that would be relatively easy to resolve. We just need to determine what skills we needed and engage higher and further education providers to deliver courses that would qualify people for the roles that are on offer. But sadly, we don't just have a skills shortage. What we do have is a complicated perfect storm of contextual and industry issues that conflate the complexity of the matter. For example, the sector has grown out of a number of different industries, such as communications, engineering, facilities management, and IT. The rapid technological expansion and global growth of the DC space has meant there's been little focus on building standard competency frameworks that clearly articulate what goes on in each job. Indeed, this differs from one organisation to the other. Unlike the hospitality industry, for example, housekeepers, sous chefs and bar attendants, regardless of where they work, have a common platform of skills. Mapping skills from one hotel to another is a relatively straightforward process. Training providers have a really good picture of what's needed for each one of those occupations and the qualifications that they're issuing. They match the relative level of expertise and mastery for each. But despite the critical nature of digital infrastructure, the DC sector doesn't have that. The landscape is so disparate that a clearly articulated suite of skills is difficult to pin down for each occupation. While many have tried, and they continue to do so, myself included, no one has as yet been able to create a definitive competency framework that the industry as a whole accepts. This leads to a couple of issues. If there's no generally accepted suite of capabilities that are mapped to occupations and occupational levels, then it's pretty much impossible for training providers to match that demand exactly. So too, the technical landscape shifts so quickly that by the time a course is developed, implemented and graduates are put to the labour market, much of what has been taught will be redundant. Indeed, when we consider that the half-life of skills like those found in the DC space is around 5 years, it's difficult for educators to keep up. So while there's a raft of great education and training providers out there delivering worthwhile qualifications, they may well never match exactly what the industry might need at any given time. Even if they did, they'd be hard-pressed to fill the shortage of around 20,000 engineers across all sectors per year in the UK alone. To meet the demand, UK government suggests we need to attract 186,000 new recruits each year for the next 5 years. And that's just one occupational set in one part of the global digital infrastructure landscape. There's a similar global shortage amongst other occupations such as IT, communications and construction across all industrial sectors. So now we've got two issues: skills shortages, not enough skills, and a labour shortage, not enough people to employ and or train. Add to this a demographic time bomb of wholesale retirements of existing employees in the next few years, and it's unlikely that the situation is going to ease anytime soon. Another compounding factor includes skills wastage, people being trained for roles that have moved on or are mismatched to occupational demand. So too we see skills wastage when people are trained in engineering, for example, and upon graduation they fail to end up in the role for which they're trained. We know that about 50% of women who graduate with a STEM qualification in engineering, for example, will not work in a role that uses her technical capabilities. So this brings me to another challenge: diversity and inclusion. Reports suggest that around 6% of the data centre workforce is female. Look around any data centre event and women are few and far between. But diversity is not just about gender, of course. People from low socioeconomic backgrounds, the neurodiverse, LGBTQ+ communities, they're all underrepresented too. And while there's a good deal of activity going on in the sector to address the largely monocultural working population, advances are slow. So now we've got skills shortages, labour shortages, diversity and demographic challenges, and they're all working against each other to deliver ongoing talent wars. Doesn't end there. Given the historically secretive nature of the sector, working in a data centre, however fabulous it might be, is not high on the agenda of young people entering the workforce. Established industries such as construction, automotive, health and retail are all competing for the attention of school leavers and university graduates. And they've been doing it for decades. Some of them are very, very good at paving the way for graduates via carefully targeted employer branding. Disparate and piecemeal, the DC sector does not have a compelling bundle of benefits out in the world to attract people into the industry. So what to do? Is all lost? Well, no. DC organisations who get smart about engaging with non-traditional modes of training, such as apprenticeships, graduate programs, on-the-job training, and better employer branding, will outdo their competitors. Talent management strategies to keep the right people in the business are also key once people are on board. And of course, intelligent succession planning, flexible work practices, and innovative melding of human and robotic employees can bring business premiums too. Progressive inclusion practices for all staff, not just women, will not only keep people, it helps build a compelling employer brand out in the world. Much of this, though, requires well-constructed and consolidated people development practices that start at the very top. Fundamentally, though, there's a compelling evidence to suggest that DC organisations are still subscribing to talent acquisition, development and succession planning in much the same way as they did last century. However, people are looking for different experiences of work, and in an environment where the sector has to sell its jobs rather than the traditional notion of buying labour, a cultural change is what's needed. So is this issue just about having enough people to do the job? Well, no. Having a full complement of skilled people is an organisational imperative. Industry-based research that I've undertaken illustrates that half of all DC vacancies take 4 to 6 months to fill, with 11% taking over twice that amount of time. The same industry survey found that 63% of organisations suffered serious impact on workload of others, and 48% identified that long-standing vacancies caused serious to severe impacts on innovation. It's no surprise then that business critical activities are also negatively affected, with around 64% of respondents suggesting serious to severe impacts and 89% reported serious to severe risk to business operations across the business. While the tech side of DC is almost always the focus of events and industry discussions, the focus is shifting. A number of industry groups and representatives are working to bring capability challenges to the fore, and fundamentally, those organisations that think progressively, challenge the status quo, and engage with non-traditional workforces and emerging capability development activities will find themselves ahead of the curve simply by diminishing the negative business impact of capability challenges. Of course, Portman is able to help. Our team of associates is not only industry experienced, but recognised as thought leaders in their fields, and we'd be happy to help.